Hi YouTube! Alright, today I'm going to talk about my first quarter reads of 2024. I have not been doing monthly reads, and I apologize, I left my tripod at home. I'm cat sitting. Cat is right over there. And I couldn't find a good place to put the camera, so I'm just holding it. So this is going to be fun. Yeah? You saying hi to the camera? Anyway, this is going to be my first quarter wrap-up of 2024. Now, I know most people do monthly and yearly wrap-ups, but I hit January just on the ground running. January was a great reading month for me. February, not as much, and March would have been a video of one book. So, we're doing a quarter wrap-up this year. First book I read of the year, I actually started at the end of 2023, and that was A Court of Silver Flames, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Volume 5. I rated this book 4 stars. Now, Sarah J. Maas isn't necessarily a prolific writer. She's not really doing much that's new, but I found A Court of Thorns and Roses to be a very fun series, and I enjoyed myself the entire time. I read most of the other series last year, obviously. Court of Silver Flames was interesting. It was through Nesta's perspective instead of Feyre's. And yeah, it still had the steamy romance. It was steamier than any other book in the series. It was so hot that I was burnt. It was that steamy. But I had a good time. It was a fun book. The next book I read in 2024, I gave a 4.5 star rating, which is a solid 90%, solid A-, and that was The Hunger Games. I have read The Hunger Games before, and that was in 2013. I read the whole series, but I'm prepping to read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, if that's the title, by rereading the trilogy. I really enjoyed The Hunger Games. Again, I gave it a higher rating than the last time. I don't know why, but I only rated it like 4.4 stars on Goodreads before. But maybe that's because Goodreads only has it only has even numbers. And you can't do point stars. And I didn't really feel it was a 5 star. And I didn't this time either, but it was really good. Next, I read Catching Fire, which I liked even more than the original Hunger Games, and gave a 4.75 stars, which is a solid 95%. Good A book. Yes, great A book. I loved it. It's so emotional. There's more going on. It's more than just the games. So I really liked it. Now, I have not read Mockingjay yet because every time it comes up at the library, I already have another book I'm reading. So I have not read Mockingjay or A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Whatever the new one is, the prequel. I have not read them yet, but I plan to before the year is over. Hi, Caddy. Hi. Sorry. It's a good thing I don't have a cat because this would be constant, but instead it's just me pet sitting right now. Next book I read was Payback's a Witch. I had originally planned to vlog reading a bunch of sapphic romance novels that I got from the library, and that didn't really end up happening, and Caddy is licking my feet. Weirdo. So I was reading this and Kiss Her Once for Me, and yeah. I didn't really like Payback's a Witch much. It took a long time for it to pass the Bechdel test, which is quite impressive for a sapphic romance to be so focused on a man. but it's mostly like about payback against this man who spurned these 3 girls, and 2 of the girls have a romance. The romance was cute. After reading A Court of Silver Flames, I'm like, where's the spice? There's no spice in this book, like, at all. It's very fade to curtains. But it was fun. I gave it a 3 stars. I didn't hate it or anything. It just wasn't the best romance I've ever read. It was okay. Looking at the rating I gave this next book, I might need to reevaluate because I think Payback's a Witch was better than Fourth Wing, despite the fact I gave Payback's a Witch 3 stars and Fourth Wing 3.5. That's like a 60 versus 70%. We're talking D minus, C minus. I don't know if Fourth Wing deserves a better grade than Payback's a Witch. But that's what I gave it. Fourth Wing was okay. I don't really get the hype, but I don't really get the hate either. It was an okay book. I did not finish Iron Flame. I just could not get into Iron Flame, unfortunately. So I won't be continuing the series. It was an okay book, and I rated it before I read Iron Flame. I'm like, if I can't even finish the second book, was the first book really better than this other book, Payback's a Witch, which I guess I will also not be continuing that series, but I don't know. I'd say they deserve the same rating, so either they both get a 3 or they both get a 3.5. I'll need to figure that out. They were both just okay. The next book I read is by a local to me author, The Bruising of Kiowa by Nassim Jamnia. I liked this book and gave it a 4.0 stars. I was a little triggered because the magic is blood magic, and that was really hard for someone who is as squeamish as I am. But the book itself was great. It was very diverse. There were a lot of LGBT characters. Like, the LGBTQ queer characters were like the majority rather than the minority. And it was a good read, and it was brief. So if you're ever looking for something short to get you out of a reading slump, I would recommend The Bruising of Kiowa. It was really good. I didn't really break down when I read these books, but I read A Court of Silver Flames, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Payback's a Witch in January. And in February, I read Fourth Wing, Bruising of Kiowa, and I'll continue. Also in February, I read Last Night at the Telegraph Club. I did talk about this in my Grippy Sock vacation wrap-up, but it was a really good book. It was a historical young adult, like, romance. And it ended on a hopeful note without being unrealistic, considering it is set in the 50s and is sapphic. I gave it a 5 stars. I really liked this one, and I do think I would read it again. Hi, Caddy. Then another 5-star romance that was sapphic was Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. Cochrane? Don't know how to pronounce her last name. I read that in February as well and gave 5 stars. It was just an adorable romance. I was like grinning from ear to ear and really rooting for them to get together. At first, I didn't really read the synopsis, so I was kind of shook by the first plot twist, which it happens about 20% in, but it is on the back of the book. So if you want to go into it and be like as pleasantly surprised as I was, I would recommend going in blind. I really felt that was worth it. It was a really good book. Next, in February, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. This was my first Emily Henry book, and I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it, and I want to read more Emily Henry because of it. I have seen some criticism for it, like, how could she go back on being a doctor? That's not feminist, but I feel like that's, like, really not understanding what feminism is, because, I don't know, like, the reason she wanted to be a doctor was to impress her family, and then when she realized I can have my own happiness, I think that was a great moral of the story. I think it was great. And then my only March read, my one book I finished in March, was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one I gave a 5 stars. It was really good. I did the audiobook, which I highly recommend because of the way it's formatted. It means a full cast, and it's told like an interview, but with the full cast reading it out loud. It was just phenomenal. And I'm currently watching the series on Amazon Prime and loving that as well. Taylor Jenkins Reid really knocked it out of the park. I like this better than the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, to be honest. Which I really liked that book. But Daisy Jones and the Six was just absolutely amazing. Anyway, I'll post the books I'm currently reading on the screen. And I'm also, on top of that, reading Shit Cassandra Saw. I plan to do a vlog about the short stories I'm writing, so look forward to that coming up eventually. It might take a few months because that's the nice thing about short stories is you can read one a day and go at your own pace. I thought I'd talk about my reading stats because this year I started using Storygraph. So this quarter, the majority of my books were emotional and adventurous, or adventurous. The majority were medium paced, 70%, and 30% were fast paced. Majority of readers found Bruising of Kielwad to be fast paced. I disagreed. I found it kind of slow, but maybe because it's short, they decided it was fast paced. I'm not really sure. Page number, 10% of my books were under 300 pages, 20% were 500 or more, and 70% were like mid-length, 300 to 499. Everything I read this first quarter was fiction. Mostly romance, was 6 of the novels, 4 of which were LGBTQ, 4 of which were fantasy, 3 of which were young adult, 3 of which were historical, 2 of which were dystopian, 2 of which were contemporary, and 1 of which was literary. I think I counted Daisy Jones and the Six as literary, which I don't know. It doesn't really have the same kind of stuff a literary novel has. So I don't know if I would agree with that. And then I actually had to backtrack and make this accurate because it was showing like everything. Like by default, if you choose a book in Storygraph, it's going to assume you're reading like whatever the debut edition was, whether that's hardcover or paperback. And I don't give a crap if it thinks I'm reading hardcover when I'm reading paperback or vice versa. But I wanted it to accurately reflect my digital reads. So 40% of the books I read were print, 10% audio, just the one, Daisy Jones and the Six, and 50% digital. And I read 2 of Suzanne Collins. She's the only author I read more than once. So those are my reading stats. Maybe I'll post screen caps so you can see instead of me just talking out my butt. But that was my first quarter of 2024, January through March. I've had a good time and I'm reading a lot in April. The only problem is I'm reading a lot at once. So I might do another quarterly wrap up instead of doing 3 months. Because I don't know how much I'm going to finish in April since I'm reading 8 books at once, guys. 8 books. Also, if you notice a change in scenery, it's because I'm cat sitting. This poster here kind of grosses me out, but whatever. It's like write a firefighter or something. Ew. Ew. The cat's gone, or I would show you him one last time. Anyway, if you watch this, thanks. Comment down below. Just let me know you watched it. Any critiques would be great. I am new to this. If your critique is you should have used a tripod, this is kind of shaky, I know that. So you can leave any other critique down below. Alright. And the lighting on this one's really good. So I should just film all my videos in my parents' den. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great one and take care.